Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauga and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. According to Indonesian Army spokesperson Doni Pramono, Indonesia is preparing 1,000 troops for possible deployment to Gaza by early April as part of a proposed multinational peacekeeping force. Pramono said the final decision rests with the government, adding that a total of 8,000 Indonesian soldiers will be ready for deployment by June. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, China will grant visa-free entry to Canadian and British nationals starting tomorrow till the end of the year, leaving the United States as the only Five Eyes country without the visa-free access. The policy takes effect as China marks the start of the Lunar New Year. According to the Japanese Foreign Ministry and the U.S. State Department, Japan also pledged $17.8 million to NATO for support to Ukraine, while Japanese Foreign Minister and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio agreed in Munich to accelerate coordination for Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's planned March visit to Washington. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that any deal between the United States and Iran must involve the removal of all enriched uranium from Iran as well as Tehran's ability to enrich more. His comments come as Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi heads to Switzerland for the second round of renewed nuclear talks. U.S. President Donald Trump said Board of Peace member states will announce at an upcoming meeting on Thursday a pledge of more than $5 billion for reconstruction and humanitarian efforts in Gaza. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has published a list of over 300 prominent figures mentioned in the files of U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists all former and current officials or politically significant figures whose names have been mentioned at least once. The Russian embassy in Ottawa rejects accusations by the Canadian authorities in connection with statements by European countries about the poisoning of blogger and longtime Putin critic Alexei Navalny, who was listed as a terrorist and extremist in Russia. Nepali candidates launched their campaigns for next month's parliamentary elections, the first since deadly anti-corruption protests toppled the previous government in 2025. Interim Prime Minister Sushila Karki says the election will draw the future of the country. A global artificial intelligence summit kicks off in New Delhi with big issues from job disruption to child safety. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the 5-day AI Impact Summit, which aims to declare a shared roadmap for global AI governance and collaboration. Now, if we start this hour with Russia, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova has criticized the Munich Security Conference held from February 13 to 15 for exposing a lack of solidarity within NATO. Zakharova has argued that the differing positions expressed by the US and European countries were not just differences in opinion, but clear signs of NATO's fragmentation. Zakharova has pointed to countries like Hungary, which she said defend their own interests, and accused Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of using rude ferocity to insult Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban in a bid to appear favorable to Western European nations. The spokeswoman has emphasized that NATO's divisions reflect broader rifts within the EU, where some countries act independently while others remain bound by a collective system that she claims leads to moral and ethical decline. Now we welcome Dr. Gilbert Doctorow. He's a Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Dr. Doctorow, for joining us for this. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what is Russian spokeswoman? Which countries is she pointing towards in this particular statement?
Well, her overall statement that there are fractures in the position of NATO countries is entirely correct. Her expression of seeming regret over this is what I would call crocodile tears, because the Russians could only be enthusiastic to watch NATO crumble. It's a bit of an overstatement, though. What I think precipitated further splitting within NATO was the unexpected speech, or the content was unexpected, by the American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. You look at mainstream commentary on that speech, you find that some people cleverly understood that Mr. Rubio was not just patching up the damage done by the Vice President 1 year ago at the same conference when J.D. Vance attacked Europe for undermining its own security by not respecting freedom of speech. So the issues here are deep divisions, but the security conference itself is only a place where they become visible. It's not the cause of the divisions. At the security conference, I think the biggest division was between Germany and France, where President Macron is very openly saying that he wants to have a renewed dialogue with Vladimir Putin, and Chancellor Merz is making it clear that he's only interested in rearming Germany.
So, what do you think? This year, was it U.S.'s strategy to send not Marco Rubio, but not send J.D. Vance and send Marco Rubio instead?
Well, after all, Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State, and normally he has the first responsibility for this type of conference and for dealing in foreign relations. J.D. Vance did it last year because it was necessary to show a high-level statement on the U.S. view of the leadership of NATO and the European Union. That was done already. Now, Mr. Rubio is known as was considered widely to be a neoconservative in outlook. And what we heard was his speech was quite amazing, because after the first sentence, in which he was discussing the fight of the free world against the Soviet Union, something you would expect to hear from the son of refugees from Fidel Castro's Cuba, from there on he made a statement which absolutely destroyed the fundamental tenets of neoconservatism, which he put together with globalism, and rightly so. And as we know, the Trump administration is dead set against globalism, meaning open frontiers, open borders, free movement of people, and so forth, and the disappearance of sovereign states in favor of global businesses and civil society. So Mr. Rubio gave a very surprising speech, which left many Europeans and commentators in mainstream confused. Where is the olive branch? Where is the administration of Trump trying to make peace with Europe? It wasn't, and some people understood that.
So, do you think U.S. Marco Rubio was just, instead of handing olive branch, which European leaders might have expected, instead do you think he pushed out U.S.'s vision or U.S.'s agenda and asked countries to join?
Well, I think that he is doing a great deal of good by showing that there is no division within the Trump administration on what Europe has to do to become a worthy partner in global governance. So that was a salutary contribution of Rubio, which some people understood, including the head of the Munich Security Conference, Mr. Ischinger, saw that this was a complex speech which deserves close attention and cannot be dismissed out of hand, as people like Chancellor Merz had done with Mr. Vance's much more fiery speech a year ago.
Yes, and so As we saw Greenland's Danish, I think it was minister or prime minister, she once again said that we cannot, forget what was said about Greenland from U.S. How do you analyze the current trust level on from European and NATO countries towards U.S. and also from U.S. towards NATO countries?
Well, the trust level across Europe is highly variable, but almost everybody, I think, has gotten the message that the good old days are gone, that Europe is expected to carry its own weight and to look after much of its own defense without having the comfort of U.S. support and even putting in question the U.S. nuclear umbrella. So that is out for everyone to see on the as to trust level of almost all European leaders in the United States has been shattered. And anyone who says that Mr. Trump is a temporary figure and that things will come back after he departs the White House, I think that view is now a very small minority view. As for the American position on Europe, it remains condemnatory with respect to lack of free speech in Europe. There is a little bit of hint that the message has been received. We know, for example, that in the pending Hungarian elections, the European Union has stepped back from its practice of intervening in this electoral process against Mr. Orban. So there is a little sign that a little concession to pressure from the United States, where we know that Mr. Trump has very good relations with Viktor Orban. And as I've said, the very fact that the Alternative for Germany opposition party has been allowed in to send representatives to the Munich Security Conference is a big change. It was one of the points that J.D. Vance used when he was saying that Germany is not respecting the views of its own people and is acting in an undemocratic way by excluding and trying to marginalize a party that enjoys large popular support in Germany.
Yes. With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Doctorow for joining us and sharing that deep insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Israel. The Israeli cabinet has approved measures to tighten control over the occupied West Bank, including land registration for settlers. This decision had been condemned as de facto annexation by Palestinians that has sparked significant international criticism as well. The West Bank is considered by Palestinians as part of their future state, with much of the territory under Israeli military control for now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has expressed strong opposition to the establishment of a Palestinian state, citing security concerns. The land registration process, the first since 1967, is seen as a move to further solidify Israeli control in the region. The Israeli officials argue that the process will promote transparency and help resolve land disputes, but Palestinians, along with international bodies like the United Nations, have criticized it as a step towards entrenching illegal settlements and occupation. Meanwhile, the U.S. administration under President Donald Trump has not opposed Israel's settlement activities, though it has ruled out former annexation. Now for this, we welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. She's a defense and international relations analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, you know, as there have been a lot of calls for the occupation to end and two-state solution of Palestine and Israel. How will this move by Israeli cabinet about West Bank further isolate or perish that idea?
Good afternoon, Asuma. So good to see you. See, to understand this development, we must revisit 1967. After the Six-Day War, Israel captured West Bank from Jordan. Since then, the territory has remained disputed, and Israel, they calls it as Judea and Samaria, okay, the biblical homeland. and Palestinians, they call it as their future state. So under the Oslo Accord, West Bank was divided into three areas, A, B, C. And 60% of the land, it still remains under full Israeli civil and security control. So there are most of the people who are settled there, they are Israelis. Now, what is land registration? See, on the surface, it may seem like a technical process of mapping and formalizing the land ownership. But if we see from geopolitical perspective, this move will allow Israel to, first of all, systematically record land under Israeli administration. So even if Palestinians, they say that, this land belong to them, but they have to legally ask Israeli authorities to register it under their names. So legalization will happen only under the Israeli government. Then it will also, convert the military occupation into civil governance. So that is why Palestinians are, they are calling it a de facto annexation. What we are witnessing is a slow death of two-nation theory. See, even if we see the international law, particularly the Fourth Geneva Convention, transferring civil population into occupied territory is considered illegal. United Nations have repeatedly termed Israeli settlements as violating international law. But what Israel says that West Bank is disputed, it is not occupied. And Jews have historical and legal claim under the mandate for Palestine. So, the geopolitical implications are profound. Land registration will consolidate Area C without legal, implications and territorial continuity. Moreover, after the Abraham Accord, Israel normalized ties with UAE, Bahrain, but this annexation will freeze the Saudi normalization. Though Washington is opposing the unilateral annexation, but since there is no reaction from this, so this is a diplomatic warning that the light is green from the US side. It's not opposing Israel at all. So this may, fuel unrest in Gaza Strip and East Jerusalem and in the refugee camps. So it's not about the land records, it's about the sovereignty, and it's about this, as I said, slow death of two-nation theory. It is a narrative which they are trying to build in Gaza Strip. Asuma.
Yes, and thank you for briefing out on the history as well. And Lieutenant Colonel, as we know, Israel holds some kind of responsibility as an occupying nation to Gaza's people or Palestinian people. So why is Israel able to get away with not acting in accordance with whatever was agreed in Oslo's law or under the previous signatories?
See, we all know that US is somewhere giving a covering fire to Israel when it comes to such occupation. We have seen what has happened in Gaza. We are seeing what is happening in West Bank. It is nobody opposes, comes against Israel when such crimes happen and they are allowed to go scot-free. There is no accountability on part of Israel which anybody is trying to fix. Moreover, recently we have seen America doing things against the UNSC, like they were already giving signals that they will go and occupy Greenland. They have already, abducted the president of President Maduro of Venezuela. So when nations start doing these things, and somebody, some strong nation like America, the signal is very, very clear that countries like Israel, they will go scot-free without any accountability towards the people and the Geneva Conventions, because the precedence is being set. So I don't think anybody is going to, oppose Israel. And all this, Gaza Peace Accord and other things, everything is going to go down the drain. There is no accountability towards people. People will keep dying. They've just allowed a small group of people to go and seek medical assistance. But Israel does not value human laws. That is very, very clear. And it is because America supports it somewhere in the background.
Yes, indeed. And last but not least, so, we were talking about accountability. Where do you see this leading us to if one country is allowed to do this and another strong nation protects it? Where's the international law? Where's the... Yes, what do you think? Sorry.
See, United States faces a delicate balancing act. Washington supports Israel's security, but officially, they are just trying to mask it by negotiating two-state outcome. But it remains silent when such things happen. So there is no pressure on Israel to do anything. There may be internal backlash that happens inside Israel, but outwardly we will see that even Iran will start exploiting this narrative. Tehran positions itself as a defender of Palestine resistance. So when increased tension strengthens Iran's ideological influence against the region, what we will see is, again, they will start giving more support to Hamas, because every time these things happen, it is not localized to the place of contention. It spreads to the people who are in ideological support of such things. So what I see, the long-term question is very, very stark. What we are, witnessing a burial of two-state framework, first of all, because the territorial integration continues incrementally and we are moving towards one-state reality. So this unequal kind of military power which is there, and it is going to fundamentally reform the nature of Israel-Palestinian conflict, because Israel has a hold over the territory, over the military power, and over the people of this disputed territory. Yes. And world will remain silent. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now, moving on, a far-right rally has erupted in Paris, with political leaders and activists calling for justice following the death of 23-year-old nationalist Quentin Durancuy. Durancuy was assaulted during a protest in Lyon, allegedly by a group of rival anti-fascist activists. His death has sparked heated political accusations, with French Justice Minister Gerald Darmanin blaming the ultra-left for fueling violence. France has unbowed leaders, including Jean-Luc Mélenchon, have rejected the claims and condemned all violence. As tensions rise, far-right demonstrators have taken place in Paris and Montpellier, demanding justice for Durancuy. Let's listen into what the leaders have shared.
L'extrême gauche française, et en particulier LFI, a du sang sur les mains. Voilà. Et je pèse mes mots, puisque de fait, l'état-major de LFI, depuis des semaines et des mois, défend systématiquement, publiquement, la jeune garde, qui est l'un des mouvements Antifa manifestement en cause dans cette agression immonde, s'affiche à leur côté, lutte contre leur dissolution. J'ai même vu Jean-Luc Mélenchon appeler récemment dans un meeting à la violence, appeler ses militants à rejoindre la jeune garde, parler en ce qui concerne de ce mouvement d'un mouvement allié. Donc il n'y a pas d'ambiguïté sur leur lien, à la fois, j'ai envie de dire, systémique et idéologique aujourd'hui avec cette mouvance Antifa.
Vous savez, Raphaël Arnaud, qui est le patron de la jeune garde, est un député LFI, non? Ça ne vous a pas échappé? Et je sais que Raphaël Arnaud, avant d'être député, était régulièrement invité par Jean-Luc Mélenchon et par les gens de LFI. Ils sont ensemble. D'ailleurs, c'est une réunion de Rima Hassan, député LFI. Tout ça est d'une logique implacable. Vous savez, ça fait des années que je dénonce quand certains avaient des tendresses coupables pour Mélenchon et pour LFI. Moi, je disais que c'était le seul adversaire. Vous voyez, je ne me suis pas trompé.
Now we welcome back Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. She is a Defense and International Relations Analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for staying with us, Lieutenant Colonel Singh. Now, what more can you tell us about, this ongoing thing in France, and also the rise of, far right and far left extremists in many countries?
See, what we see when the Justice Minister uses terms like ultra-left barbarians and the opposition speaks of lynching. So this is not just a street ball. We are talking about the collapse of Republican Front. France is not just facing a criminal investigation, it is confronting the crisis of ideological polarization. So this beating, has triggered a national mobilization in France, where these far-right groups are holding rallies, and they are blaming the far left for political violence. So, we must understand that there are some structural fault lines in France. Over past 1 decade, what we have seen, that France is seeing rising of nationalist policies and politics prominently represented by Marine Le Pen and her movement. At the same time, what we see is far left mobilization, which has just emerged through, formations of La France Insoumise. So this polarization, which was intensified after the Yellow Vest protest, and it had begun as an economic protest, which later on turned into an anti-establishment wave. So now this death of a youth, it is now trying to become a very, very stark breaking point for France. It is like a spark in a dry forest, and it is serious. First of all, France has a history of rapid street mobilization, and demonstrations can escalate very quickly into riots. So that is why, we have to see it, how serious it can get. Secondly, the electoral implications are very, very significant. Security incidents tend to benefit parties which advocate strict laws and, order politics. So when this event is framed into an ideological violence, this can actually consolidate the nationalist voters. Moreover, see, France is not just a country, it's a center pillar of European Union. And at the time when Europe is managing Ukraine war, and there is a migration pressure and there is an economic slowdown, such internal instability can weaken France's stand worldwide. Asuma.
With that, I would like to thank Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh for joining us today and sharing that insight with us. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Africa. Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has announced that his country will table a resolution at the United Nations General Assembly in March, seeking to formally designate the transatlantic slave trade as the most serious crime against humanity. Speaking at the close of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Mahama said the move follows consultations with African states and has the backing of the African Union. The proposed resolution describes the trafficking and racialized enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime in record of history. Ghana has long been at the forefront of global calls for reparations, a push now being coordinated with the Caribbean community. Mahama stressed that the effort is not solely about financial compensation, but about restoring historical truth and securing international acknowledgement. The initiative is expected to trigger broad diplomatic debate at the UN as discussions on historical accountability and reparatory justice gain momentum across Africa and the Caribbean. Let's listen in.
The first step towards healing is truth. The truth about the story of the transatlantic slave trade must be told. And this resolution at the United Nations is the first step. And we expect that with the consultations we've done and the endorsement of the AU, that finally the truth about the transatlantic slave trade being the gravest injustice and crime against humanity would be acknowledged. The adoption of this resolution will not erase history, but it will acknowledge it. The trafficking in enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement were foundational crimes that have shaped the modern world, and their consequences continue to manifest in structural inequality, racial discrimination, and economic disparity. Beginning 20th February 2026, Ghana will conduct intensive diplomatic engagements in New York with CARICOM, the Non-Aligned Movement, the Group of 77 in China, the European Union, and other regional groupings. Informal consultations on the draft text are expected to take place between 23rd February and 12 March 2026. Our objective is simple: to build a broad consensus behind this resolution.
Now we move on to our tech news. ByteDance says it will take steps to prevent the unauthorized use of intellectual property on its AI video generator, Seedance 2.0, following threats of legal action from US studios, including Disney. Videos created by the tool have gone viral in China, including AI clips featuring Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. Disney has sent a cease and desist letter alleging Seedance was trained using copyrighted characters from franchises such as Star Wars and Marvel without permission. ByteDance says it is strengthening safeguards but has not given details as scrutiny of AI copyright practices intensifies. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.